America Mayor Live. So I am going to go back to something we talked about last night because it got changed again. Now, I do not understand how these people get away with lying as much as they do. And this show is going to be about, to a very large extent, who are the liars and who's telling the truth. Because the American people got to figure that out, right? It really comes down to who the good guys are, who the bad guys, who's lying, who's telling the truth. So this indictment is weird, to say the least. Let me tell you, generally, I read through it. There isn't a single crime in it, or anything you would recognize as a crime. No one committed fraud. No one hit anyone. No one pressured anyone, unless you consider that conversation between Trump and Ratzenberger pressure. He'd have to be a real wussy if that were pressure. And he looks to me like a pretty shrewd, pretty conniving guy. In fact, I know he's a conniving guy. I'm going to show you he's a conniving guy in just a few minutes. So, I mean, you read through it and it can't be a crime. I'll tell you why it can't be a crime. Because if it was a crime, and Franny Willis, who doesn't seem to be able to get an indictment done right, Fanny, or did I say Franny? Yeah. Well, Fanny, who can't get an indictment right, I mean, she's got to kind of have to work on indictment 101, which she failed miserably the other night. So I want you to just listen to this. This is Stacey Abrams, which she's been saying regularly for 4 years. Now, under the Fanny doctrine, which is to indict people who are election deniers, this woman probably in the state of Georgia denied the election more often than anyone, including Trump. Is there a reason she's not indicted? I want you to guess what the reason is. But listen to it though. First, let's listen to her. Now, don't get upset. There are times, I don't know if it comes out here, but there are times that she thinks she's the governor. She goes into a thing where she thinks she's the governor.
Win my election. I just didn't get to have the job. We were robbed of an election.
Using the word rigged, using the word steal. Do you think it's dangerous going into 2020?
I don't, because we can actually back it up.
And so in response to what I believe was a stolen election, and I'm not saying they stole it from me, they stole it from the voters of Georgia.
Back to someone outside asked if I'm ever going to concede. The answer is no.
This is not a speech of concession. Because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. And I will not concede because the erosion of our democracy is not right.
People will make you mad. They're going to steal your election.
It was not a free and fair election. I think the election was stolen from the people of Georgia.
I believe it was stolen from the voters.
Thousands of Georgians had their voices stolen because they were not able to cast ballots. And they cannot be guaranteed that their votes will be counted in 2020 if we don't do this right.
That's almost the same number of counts, too, 13. She wasn't indicted. Why wasn't she indicted? Oh, you're going to say because she's a Democrat or whatever. She wasn't indicted because it's not a crime. That's why she wasn't indicted. And it makes the point that what is not a crime for Democrats becomes a crime for Republicans. And when we say two-tiered system of justice, well, you just play that tape and show it to your friends, if you have any friends left that are wacky left-wing Democrats, play that for them and say, why isn't she indicted? This stuff fits right in that indictment. And she says she had things to back it up. Actually, Trump did. She didn't have anything to back it up. Trump not only had his own things to back it up, He had a report of the state Senate by William Ligon. After 100 witnesses, they came to the conclusion that there were enough fraudulent votes by a good number to change the election, and wrote a letter to Pence asking that that there be a delay so that they could recount the vote. You see, they recounted 3 times, but every time they counted the same phony votes. Not if. The way they stole, I know there was so much emphasis on the voting machines. The people went off on that, and there's something to it. But the way this election was stolen was with paper ballots, and I can tell you that because they wouldn't let us look at the paper ballots. I mean, they were ready to die rather than let us see those paper ballots. Same thing in Pennsylvania. Same thing in the other crooked Democratic cities, in Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh, in Detroit. Can't see the paper ballots. They constructed big pens like you put cows in order to accomplish it. And they have defied court orders, so you couldn't see the paper ballots. Why? Because some of the paper ballots were phony. Some of the paper ballots were made up to make up the difference. Remember, Trump was ahead in all of these places. They called off the vote around 11 o'clock at night in all these places. And then all of them just about proceeded to count, having rid themselves of whatever remaining Republicans there were. They weren't getting to see the ballots, but they could have seen some of the suspicious activity that went on. And then they went on and counted, and Biden got something like 98% of that vote and caught up, not completely, but very, very significantly that night. Now, if I'm right, and I am, in those ballots, in those paper ballots, are going to be an awful lot that can be identified as phony ballots. Now, here's why. Each one of these states ordered the stationery from a particular company. One of them had 2 companies. And as far as we can tell from the informants, they didn't, the people doing the phony ballots weren't smart enough, or maybe there wasn't enough of that paper left. They used whatever white paper they could get. And a lot of it was done by machine. They put it in a machine, and the machine would just hit Biden, 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 Biden. And in fact, there were a tremendous number of singular Biden votes, which is also very suspicious. Many, many more than singular Trump votes. So how do we determine this? We take all the paper. We bring in our forensic expert. They can bring in theirs, and we have them examine the paper. And they take the real paper the ballot was on. They put it down in a machine that analyze it, and then they run through it, all the ballots. And the machine will kick out the ones that don't match the official paper. And then they'll all be in a pile. And we get a second look. Maybe the machine made a mistake. Maybe someplace there was some record of using some other paper. By and large, those are going to be the phony ballots. Now, there'll be a second thing that could tell, unless they fool around with them later on, because I kind of lost track of seeing any of these after about 4 or 5 days because it wouldn't let me see them. But I was told at times when we got close to the ballots, every time I've got affidavits and I've got statements that there were a large number of what were described in Pennsylvania and in Atlanta as pristine ballots. Pristine ballots means they weren't folded, which is a absolute giveaway that it's not a mail-in ballot. It's a phony ballot because you have to put it in an envelope. You have to put it in an envelope. Have the signature. There's no place on the ballot for a signature. So if it were given in that way, it's not a valid vote because no one can be identified as the voter. And in both Pennsylvania and in Georgia, there are witnesses who testified in front of Ligon's committee and would have testified in court if the court had allowed witnesses, which they didn't, that there were a large number of these ballots. Don't know don't know that you could quantify them the way some of the other things could be quantified, but we're talking in the thousands. I think maybe they were quantified in Pennsylvania, but in any event, they didn't allow it. So every time you recounted the ballots, you ended up with the same phony ballots being counted. Now, you want to get an idea of how careful this district attorney's office is that has taken the bold step of bringing the fourth indictment against a leading Republican candidate for president and a former president of the United States. They indicted him before they indicted him. Now, you're going to say that's a clerical error. Like hell, it's a clerical error. They've gone through 3 explanations of this. This reminds me of the cocaine, in the White House, where they came up with 3 different places they found it. They found it in the library, they found it in the waiting room, and they found it next to the situation room. Of course, pick one. You can only find it in one place, unless it moved around. When they found him, and then it walked over and went over. Joe probably believes that. So their first explanation when this came out was this was just nothing. This was just a complete mistake. It was fraudulent and just completely wrong in all respects. Now the thing, and I looked at it immediately at 12:57 when I got it, and I said, "Here we go with the lies again," because this is definitely an official filing of an indictment. It has the case number. It has the file number. It has the file date, which was 8/14. It has a court number. It has a case title. It has a judge to whom it was assigned. And it has the big little thing here that makes it says the case is open. And the defendant is Trump. There are a whole bunch of counts here. They took it back, said it was nothing. And then at 8 o'clock, they filed an indictment exactly like this. Exactly like it. Not even a change. What that meant is she knew they were going to indict, or assistants did, before they indicted, which makes a real mockery of the grand jury. I know people say it's like a ham sandwich, but you got to have some respect for it. And second, the clerk says that she, now the clerk has a new explanation. The clerk's new explanation is she was testing because this was going to be very important. So she put this in as a test. And nobody asked her in the crooked press or in crooked Fulton County or in crooked Georgia with an AG and a governor who asked no questions. Nobody asked her, where did you get this? How I mean, you're doing practice, but you got the actual indictment here. How'd you just happen to have the actual indictment? You're not supposed to have it if it wasn't voted until 8 o'clock. That's a crime. Who gave it to you? Who could have given it to you? So who writes the indictment? Fannie writes the indictments. Well, I don't know if Fannie writes it, but one of Fannie's people writes it. That'd be the only one who would have it. One of the assistant DAs or the DA gave her this. So before we even start talking about whether there's any crimes here, we got a crime before the crimes committed by the prosecutor. Yeah, I mean, when I told you that Atlanta was crooked, am I right? I never heard this happen before in my life. She had to have had the indictment. This wasn't practice. This is it. This is all the same counts. Violation of RICO, solicitation of oath, conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. I don't remember who the hell did that. Impersonating somebody walk around like Officer Krupke in My Fair Lady, Officer Krumke, da, 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 da. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't. And I didn't even use my my FBI G-Man of the Year badge, which the current FBI would like to get back. Good luck. It wasn't in the search warrant. You don't get it, dummies. There's a conspiracy to commit perjury, which means it probably wasn't committed. And there was a conspiracy to commit false statements. Now, let's define false. False is what they say is false. So they say it was a perfect election and there were no phony ballots. And you have to say that, otherwise you get indicted. It sounds a little like violation of freedom of speech, huh? Yeah. So Fannie and Governor Kemp and the very, very sensitive Attorney General, they set the truth. And then if you say something that they believe is untrue, they don't debate you about it or try to prove it's untrue. They try to put you in jail for 5 years minimum. Now, and they don't bother to ask you, where did you get the information from? Maybe you got 5 witnesses standing behind you. This is the kind of corrupt situation we have in Atlanta. And it's why it's one of the most corrupt cities in the country. Please, I hope you know that. And that the stealing of this election was very, very carefully geared toward corrupt democratic, long-term corrupt democratic cities. The indictment, I mean, the indictment or maybe I should play one of the tapes they have of me. I'm gonna play one of me. Oh, here it is. I got it right here. Hold it. Yeah, this is myself and my co-counsel Jenna Ellis talking to probably one of the legislators that we were trying to persuade that there was that the evidence of fraud was correct. By the way, when the committee voted, they voted virtually unanimously, and many of them we didn't talk to, that there was fraud. And the Ligon report came to the conclusion that it was large enough to affect the election. So we're not on our own here. And when they say, the governor said the election is perfect, but the legislator said it was. The legislature said it wasn't. So the governor may be the governor, but he's not the commissar of truth. See, it doesn't work that way in America. It works that way in the kind of country they would like to make America, the communists and the Democrats. This is a call of myself and Jenna Ellis. I don't know what legislator it was, but it wouldn't matter. And we made several of these calls. They sound pretty much the same to me. See if this sounds like we committed a crime or we were acting as attorneys for our client, trying to make the best possible case for him.
Mr. Speaker, this is Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis. We're calling you together because we'd like to discuss, obviously, the election.
Hello, Mr. Speaker. This is Jenna Ellis, and I'm here with Mayor Giuliani.
Hey, Brian, it's Rudy. I really have something important to call to your attention that I think really changes things.
Well, the RICO cases I had were, you better vote for this or we're going to break your legs. Yeah. Jenna and I sound like gangsters there. Like we're putting pressure on them. All of them are the same. That's what a lawyer does. You see that? That's what a lawyer does. A lawyer calls and tries to gather witnesses for his client. If you can't do that, you can't represent your client, which is what they want. They don't want Trump represented. And this becomes without any doubt a complete evisceration of the First Amendment, free speech, Trump's free speech, our free speech as advocates, and also the Sixth Amendment, the right to counsel. What lawyer is going to work for you if the lawyer is going about his business trying to further claims on your behalf, which may be true, may not be true, but have to be followed up? And then if it turns out that the dictator in chief decides the truth, even before there's a trial, he decides what the truth is, and you're on the other side, you get indicted for it. This is absurd. It's absurd. I mean, have we become so brainwashed? I mean, the Democratic half of this country is so brainwashed that you can't think anymore? Did somebody take away your power to reason and to think? Nobody's ever been indicted for anything like this before. You don't indict a former president for something nobody's ever been indicted for. Sounds like you're making up a crime. You had plenty of people you could have indicted for this, like Stacey Abrams. He didn't do it. So that's the first major problem with this indictment. The indictment was filed before the indictment was filed, and there is a major problem because we need to know the answer to why the clerk had the conclusion of the grand jury on an official document 8 hours before the grand jury reached that conclusion. And therefore, was it really the conclusion of the grand jury? Or was it dictated to them by Fani Willis, and it should be dismissed? I don't know if they have the guts to do that, but...
Well, Mayor, Fani Willis already went on the news today, and she said she has no idea what law clerks do, and that's not her responsibility. So she absolved herself of all liability. She said this on public TV, Mayor.
Was she a moron?
Many people disputed her claims, of course.
She a moron?
I would say so, yes.
I don't think there's a district attorney in the country that doesn't know what the clerk does.
She said she has
How
no idea
do you do your
what
job
they do.
if you don't know how to file an indictment?
She said that's not her department. She has no idea what they do.
First thing I learned when I became an assistant U.S. attorney is filing indictments. That you give that to your most junior person, and it really isn't hard, Fani. I could teach you how to do it. Fani, what I would recommend in your case is you come to my office, and I will show you how to do it. And you know what I'll even do? I'll give you a little notes like Biden has. You know, you can have little notes the first couple of times you don't get screwed up. You can have little cue cards. You see, you put, how do you file an indictment? Well, once the grand jury votes it, you make sure that the clerk registers the votes because it might not be unanimous. It has to be majority. Then you fill out the form. Would you like me to go through the form with you, Fani, if you can't read what it asks for here? And then you produce a document like the one I showed you, and you see it's an indictment. See, you were confused. You didn't know this was an indictment. It's an indictment if it has a case number, it's been assigned a judge, it's been assigned a courtroom, and it's got all the counts in it. That was an indictment that you took back. And then, lo and behold, miracle of miracles, all the same counts appear 8 hours later. This time voted by the grand jury. Fani, looks like you're screwing around, huh? Okay. You're a Fulton County politician. What am I expecting? I'm expecting you're going to be like an assistant U.S. attorney in Southern District of New York or an ADA in Manhattan before Bragg. Integrity, honesty. No, your office did so much leaking. It's known as a joke. Your office is a joke. Even among your other special prosecutors, you're a joke. You leaked the whole case. And you leaked the whole case. And then you filed this thing. And while you were leaking the case, it didn't sound like you had a case. And now that you wrote it out, it sounds like you have even less of a case. And you can't even indict it properly. Did you ever, Fanny, did you ever see the report that the very, very sensitive and frightened Attorney General Raffensperger, who got all bent out of shape when Trump spoke to him, he got very, very frightened. Did you know that he had a report hiding in his desk? Oh gosh, until a year after the election, when it was dug out on a Freedom of Information Act request. And this was, I think he got this about 7 days after the election. It has a couple of things on the front and the back, basically saying the election wasn't stolen, da, 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 da. But then you go read it. The guy must have had an arm twisted to put those little conclusions. But I'm more interested in facts than conclusion. Let me give you a fact. This is the guy, the independent investigator for Raffensperger. This was never brought out. When Trump was talking to him, he didn't tell Trump about this. He also pronounced that the election was pretty much perfect, which had to be an absolute lie if he had this. Because listen to this. The truth about what happened on the night of November 3rd between 10:30 and 11:52 p.m., that's when they threw the people out, continues to be elusive. GOP party poll watchers say that Fulton County staff told them and the media to go home, implying that they did so in order to count without supervision. Fulton staff tell me that the poll watchers and the media just left. The poll watchers just left. When Morse sent home everyone but the scanner team. An SOS investigator is involved, so the truth will come out. But if the party poll watchers are correct, then there's a serious problem. Well, they are correct. And the tape, whatever other interpretation you have of it, is quite clear in that they are escorted out. Like they shoo them out. And then after they're out, they case the joint twice. And then they go open up a blanket, big black blanket, and they start taking out big cartons of ballots. And they start stuffing them in the machine with no one there. And no one, including the attorney general or the governor, has ever informed you, because they are liars, that in and of itself is a serious violation of Georgia law. Georgia requires that the ballots be counted in public. The public had been excluded. The arena tape makes it clear. They did it because they didn't know they were on tape. The tape that picked it up was the security tape that's used for the basketball games and everything else. No one even knew it existed until the owner looked at it, realized that it looked pretty darn criminal, and gave it to one of the Republican lawyers. Let me clear up another fact. Fannie Willis, in her completely irresponsible indictment, somehow suggests that I edited it, that I changed it, or that I even had something to do with procuring it. All of that's completely untrue. I did. First time I saw it was when I watched it at the hearing of the state legislature with everyone else. I never had the original in my possession. I never edited it. I wouldn't know how to. And I interpret what I interpret from what I see. And when I listen to Raffensperger and the rest of them tell me their interpretation, I believe not only are they wrong, they're deliberately lying. And now I'm reinforced in that because I didn't know that Raffensperger was hiding a report that supports the fact that there were serious problems with the election. Now, I'm entitled to have that opinion. That doesn't come out of thin air. I can look at that recording, come up with my own opinion of it. I don't have to accept theirs. I kind of have a lot of experience watching criminal situations. I get a pretty good sense when people are acting in a criminal way, surreptitiously, casing the joint. And I'm entitled to draw that conclusion. I'm also entitled to draw conclusions for the benefit of my client. But no. The truth is, there was nothing wrong with that. And my saying that is a crime. I go to jail for being aware, arguing my case. How about this? There were persistent chain of custody issues throughout the entire absentee ballot processing system. That means you can't verify them. Chain of custody is critical. Yeah, have any idea what I used to go through when I was the head of the narcotics division to make sure we had the right chain of custody for our evidence? Because if we didn't, the defense lawyer get it knocked out. I couldn't validate it. Now, he doesn't bother to tell us how many. He's working for Ratzenberger. I'm going to tell you why. I would draw the inference because there are a lot of them. And they contradict what he had to come to the conclusion that it didn't affect the election. He does say there were persistent chain of custody issues throughout the entire absentee ballot processing system, which means they don't know where they came from. They could have come from the factory printing ballots 2 blocks away. Aside from the problems with the system at Pryor Street, the fact that ballots were being delivered at State Farm Arena in unsecured mail carts is very concerning. They collect ballots, official ballot mail carts? Or is that coming from the factory where they're printing up the phony ballots? Well, we don't have a chain of custody, so we don't know. And the fact that they're coming in mail carts, I think that's circumstantial evidence. Think as a lawyer, I have a right to argue that for my client? This is their report. This is the report to the Attorney General that he hid. He must have learned this like from Barr. Barr hid the hard drive, and he's going to hide the evidence of the cheating. The problem was exacerbated by poor managerial processes by Ralph Jones, he was in charge, who failed to intake counts for the provisional ballots. A similar problem seemed to exist at the warehouse. You know what that means? They don't know how many came in. So you can't square it up. The same number that came in should come out, but they can't do that. So somebody could easily slip ballots in and change numbers. How about this? No one verified the number of provisional ballots either at intake, at State Farm, or at adjudication. Now, provisional ballots were a real problem because a lot of people showed up to vote who had already voted. And they said, well, we didn't vote. But those were the people that a fraudulent vote had been cast by the party machine. And when they cast it, they attached it to a registration. And they often attached it to a registration, sometimes of people who don't vote that often. In one case, and there was a very poignant situation where a young girl, first time she's going to vote, shows up and she's told that she voted already. She said, no, I didn't vote already. I didn't use those absentee ballots. I got so many of them, but I didn't use them because I wanted to have this occasion of voting for the first time. They didn't let her vote. They may have let her cast a provisional ballot. I don't believe they counted it. According to this, they could have lost it. They never kept any record of it. I could go on with this, but the point that I'm trying to make to you is that everything that I said and did, and that Jenna Ellis said and did, and Professor Eastman, and of course the president, is based on something like this. Now, this is pretty powerful. This one we pulled out of Ratzenberger's safe or wherever the hell it was. This has got to tell you what a duplicitous guy he is that he didn't come forward with this. He's a big hero. My backside. He's a big hero. Well, I think it's time to put on a little ad about one of the greatest organizations in the United States.
That's right, Mayor. QUX TV.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll do that first. That's also one of the very best. And make sure you get one. I saw a report today that all these prices are going up with these streaming services. Did you see that?
That's right.
The Wall Street Journal had a big thing. They're all, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Disney's gone up 3 times in the last 2 months.
And QUX is one of the greatest organizations in the United States right now because it offers encrypted TV so people cannot steal your information. And that is something the mayor loves very much. That's why he has one.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to play that.
And we're going to, that's right.
The year is 2022. Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom, as we know it, has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Qwix, digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Qwix. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting Qwix.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
We are back, and I just want to show you the article in the Wall Street Journal so you can read it. And I think once you read it, you'll make that purchase right away. Streaming giants bet price increases won't scare off customers. The average cost of watching a major ad-free streaming service is going up nearly 25% this year. Disney raised the price already twice. Last week for the second time. It's twice as much as it was 3 years ago. Also, Peacock, Max, Paramount Plus, Apple TV Plus. They think it's going to be a 25 to 30% increase. Streamers make up 38.7% of America's viewing time last month, and TV now has gone down below 50%. So they see big bucks here. They all think, all the big shots who run these monopolies think they're making too little on this. So you're looking at big increases. That's not going to be the case with QUX. They're not a big conglomerate. They're not a big anything. They're very, very frugal, and they're very, very good. And they're very secure, and they're more secure than any of these others. So I'd get in now while the price is right and is going to remain right before these guys start to rape everybody. So here's my Fulton County report. I did that. Now, I really am getting tired of like always starting from the beginning again, because there's a history here, and the history is going to tell you who's telling the truth about the stolen election, isn't it? This is not a new thing. This is chapter 5, 6, 7 in a book called Let's Get Rid of Donald Trump Any Way We Have to. And it began with, you'll remember this, I remember because I was his lawyer for this, Russian collusion. Remember, every network had Russian collusion on from dawn to dusk. Every one of our expert, Chuck Todd, Andrea Mitchell, he's a traitor. He's involved with the Russians. There's another blockbuster piece of evidence. We've got his diaries and entries. Then Shifty Schiff stands up like Joe McCarthy. I have a list here of direct evidence against him of Russian collusion. I think he must have lost the list. The FBI investigated it 3 times. Why it investigated it 3 times is to harass him and to see if they could crack somebody. Paul Manafort was on last night, and they had him in jail and pretty much tortured him. They'd keep him in solitary. They'd bring him out to be questioned by Andrew Weissman. Weissman would tell him what he wanted to hear, that he was the go-between for Russian collusion, and let him know he could get out of solitary if he said that. And then they sent him back. And the man was sick. He was underweight. And luckily, he was an honest man. He didn't crack. A couple of others cracked, like Cohen. Cohen cracked. The guy I was working with cracked. One of them did. The other guy beautifully stood up and contradicted everything. Got the truth out. So, for 3-4 years, the entire world believes that Trump is involved in Russian collusion. And then it turns out it's completely untrue. No, it's not just untrue. It's completely untrue. Hillary Clinton paid for it. It's like a Hollywood production. She paid $1.1 million to develop the false story, first to stop him from being president. And when that didn't work, as Peter Strzok said to his mistress, as insurance to get him out. Obama knew it when it was going on, while he was still in office, did nothing about it. Biden knew it and even made some suggestions on how to carry it out. The 2 intelligence prostitutes that he had working for him knew it. I think the whole White House knew it, but they kept it going. Kept it going. How long? About 3-4 years. I represented them for 2.5 of those years. I think we did a pretty damn good job of disproving it 50 ways to Sunday. Mueller had to say no evidence of it. They still didn't believe it. Then there was another report that came out, no evidence of it. And finally, a definitive report that shows there isn't a scintilla of evidence of any kind of connection to the Russians. And then the evidence came out that it was purchased by Hillary. And a lot of it happened in Ukraine, which is the original information that I had and gave to them. So we have a conclusion here, don't we? We can tell who the liars are. Liars are Hillary, Biden and his whole crew, and the deep state, the FBI, the intelligence services, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC. They're all, see what that word says? Liars. Liars at one point, in order to take out a duly elected president of the United States on a false charge. And nobody's even investigated them. Nobody searched their homes like they searched my home. Nobody indicted them for a crime like they indicted me for a crime. Nobody indicted any of them like they indicted Trump 4 times. They were liars about a conspiracy to remove a president on false information purchased from foreigners. Who was telling the truth? Trump, Giuliani, and all our people. I was on television over and over and over again. And after being ripped apart and threatened and basically had to leave my law firm, lost an enormous amount of money, I had the satisfaction of being vindicated, and I was telling the truth. Now we're going to take a brief break, and we'll see if there's any consistency to this pattern. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Okay. It's time to make a contribution. $11 a month, T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. It is the single best, most beautiful, most wonderful organization in the United States. We'll be talking plenty about it. Plenty. Now, let's see if this pattern repeated itself. Remember? I don't know if you remember. I do. Like it was yesterday. I first revealed the Biden bribery scheme in early February of 2019. And I kept putting out more and more evidence. I went and interviewed the witnesses. I didn't just put it out the way these creeps lie and leak. And I had tapes. I had witnesses. I gave it first to Sean Hannity. Then I gave it to John Solomon. And I also gave John the witnesses because he's a very careful reporter, so he could examine them also. Also, I'd get a check that way on my own assessment of their credibility. He interviewed 5, 6, 7, 8 of the prosecutors that only want to be interviewed by me because they've been turned down by the Southern District of New York. They're turned down by the Justice Department. And I put it out, and I was called a liar. Biden had been debunked. It wasn't true. Shokin was corrupt. Never happened. Giuliani's lying. Biden wrote a letter to the newspapers and to the newspapers and to the television stations not to put me on. He said that he never talked to any of the foreign people that were involved with his son. He never talked to anybody from Ukraine. Then we produced a picture of him with one of the Ukrainian people. I don't know what he said to that. Blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, the hard drive finally came out, and the hard drive finally was validated. And the hard drive proves 40 different ways based on video, audio, text, email, and documents that Biden received at least a $12 million bribe for the Biden crime family in Ukraine. Walked out of Ukraine with 12 million. I'm going to tell you it's eventually going to turn out to be 20, but the 12 is documented. So we now can conclude who was lying and who was telling the truth. Biden and company were lying. Biden, the Biden crime family, all of his little hangers-on. The media, big time. The media, big time, was lying. They even knew it was true, some of them. They even knew it was true. They knew he was been taking bribes for years. He's been a slime ball for years. And, of course, the deep state. The intelligence agencies covered it up. The FBI covered it up. The FBI wouldn't interview the witnesses. The FBI wouldn't go look at the bank accounts. The FBI got the hard drive and sat on it. And that gets us to the hard drive. I put out the hard drive in late September, early October 2016. I gave it to the New York Post because they were the only one with the guts to print it. The hard drive was completely validated by 5 different groups. And not only that, I didn't know at the time it had been validated by the FBI 8 months earlier. Barr knew it. Ray knew it. The FBI knew it. But they let the whole world call me a liar. And Trump. They let Biden go on national television in a debate and tell an absolute, complete lie that really affects the national security of the United States. The lie was that this was, that I was a Russian pawn. And then they got 51, only can be described as whores, prostitutes, if you prefer, who pretty much have done a pretty good job of screwing up our intelligence for the last 20 to 25 years, because it looks to me like they are willing to say anything or suck anything they have to suck to get ahead. They all signed it. They all signed it. They said the hard drive has earmarks of Russian collusion. I looked at it very carefully. I didn't see any earmarks on it. I should have gotten it. I'll bring it out and show it to you. I mean, there's no earmarks on it. There's not like a big Russian flag on it, or I don't even think there's anything in Russian on it. Maybe, because he did call Russia a few times. I became immediately very suspicious of these liars, because by this point, some of these people I used to have respect for, but by this point I had realized that these people are they're either interested in money, what contracts they can get, what kind of security clearances they can get, and they're not all traitors, but some of them are complete traitors to the United States. So they just signed. They never checked anything out. They didn't bother to call to ask. They didn't look at the hard drive. They really didn't have any earmarks, so they would have put it in the letter, right? I mean, I've written letters where you're trying to prove something. You usually give a couple of examples. Well, they didn't have any examples because there aren't any examples. One guy even admitted, well, I would have signed it even if it was untrue because I didn't want Trump to be president. Oh, yeah, because he wanted to get some cushy job from Biden because he knew that Biden's a crook and Biden pay him off. There's no doubt with regard to the hard drive, after 16 months of being castigated as a Russian spy, suspend my law license, all kinds of other things, that the liars are Biden, big tech, who supported it, the deep state, Intel, and of course the 51 prostitutes. Now we got 3 situations. Truth, Trump, Giuliani, MAGA. Lies, Biden and his whole crew. On very serious things. Russian collusion, trying to take down an lawfully elected president. Ukraine bribery, which is crime at the highest levels of two governments, which now has a major impact on the ability of Biden to act fairly and impartially with regard to a major war that's going on. How do we know why he's giving him money? And how do we know what's happening to the money? Biden has very suspiciously turned down monitors for all the money. And then we have the hard drive from hell, which contains, without doubt, 100 crimes, some of which don't need anything more but the documents in the hard drive to prove them. And nobody's been arrested. No one's been indicted. No one's been interviewed. They're fixing it. They're putting in the fix, the corrupt fix, so that these crimes at the highest level of our government can continue to go on. And they have succeeded in making the United States a corrupt country. And the people in each case telling the truth are Trump and me. So now what about the 2020 election and the fraud there? Biden and company say no fraud, perfect election. Trump and Giuliani say it was stolen. What happened? All of a sudden we became liars. And all of a sudden they've figured out they're going to tell the truth. Hey, people who cover up a hard drive, which is material evidence of a serious crime, and get the FBI director to commit the crime with them, and the head of the Department of Justice are quite capable of fixing an election. In fact, they did fix the election by depriving you of that information. That information was vitally important. When you do a poll, 20 to 30% of the people who voted for Biden said they would have either not voted for him or voted for Trump. You don't have to get to the stolen votes to prove it was a fraudulent election of Joe Biden. He was elected under false pretenses. And the same tactics that they used to keep this going for 4 years and make us look like liars. And the same thing with the bribery and the same thing with the laptop, because they use propaganda and the crooked media buys it. The same reversal of the truth they're doing now with the stolen election. It's the same thing.
It'll all come out later, but by then it's too late.
Yeah, that's the whole idea.
That's the whole idea.
I mean, they go into the conniption if you talk about stolen election, you're an election denier, as if you're some kind of traitor. It's the same thing as these. It's the same thing here. If you didn't admit Russian collusion, you were a Russian agent. If you brought up Ukrainian bribery, you were trying to impact and affect the election unfairly and maligning poor demented Joe. The laptop was collusion with the Russians, like you're a spy of some kind. People believed it. Yeah. Now, if you say anything about the election, you're taken off television. You're considered to be a kook. You're absolutely crazy. The newspapers in their news articles write as if it's a foregone conclusion. Yeah. Donald Trump falsely alleged was fraudulent because the ministers of truth have decided what the truth is. You see this? How it switched? Sometime within the next year, this will switch to.
Right, it'll switch.
It'll switch, and they'll just go. We just fixed an election. What the hell? Right. And unless we change this place and we get it back to being a free country and a country of laws, it'll go on forever. Yeah. Yeah, and we'll be a banana republic, and not the country that was given to us by our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. And we will be a disgusting generation. So I think I would like, both. Are we going to play it?
Yeah. No. Do it live.
Okay. All right. That's a change. Well, I'm having my balance of nature. I'm having my first, my veggies, then my fruits. I dropped one. I'll get it later. I don't like wasting. Ooh, my small ones. I don't know where they are, but
Right here.
oh yeah. So you can get these. You can get these by going to balanceofnature.com, promo code Rudy. Okay, and you might want to, along with it, add the fiber and spice. And I would say you get $25 off this one, a baby one, the one that I'm recommending for Christmas ornaments. Okay? This is very, very good for you. It's natural. It gives you incredibly big boost in energy you would not expect pretty much right away. Maybe 2-3 days. I don't know. It seemed to me right away. Excellent, excellent. Now I have energy to keep going.
Soccer time.
We have a little soccer time. We got a couple of things to mention. First of all, this case, as I told you last night, is going to be removed. Pretty smart, huh? Nobody came up with that except me and Mark Meadows' lawyers who did it this morning. I've been holding that one for 2 weeks because I didn't want to alert Fanny because I figured Fanny doesn't do legal research. And she might have tried to engineer the indictment that it wasn't exactly perfect for removal. Well, Fanny, it's perfect for removal. The removal statute is not only very, very broad and very accommodating, but the various circuit courts have different standards for it. And probably the most generous is in the Fifth Circuit. I don't know if you know this, Fanny, but you're in the Fifth Circuit. And in a case just a few years ago, the Fifth Circuit, Latiolis versus Hunting and Ingalls Incorporated, set up a 4-part test for how a non-federal agent can get a removal. And basically it has 4 areas, but the main thing is if you're doing it at the direction and under the supervision of the president, it will then be removed to federal court so that the federal government gets the right to sort of set its rules and its standards. And they say things like discretion should be exercised in favor of liberally removing so that there isn't interference with the federal court. A case in which a judge didn't do the removal, this laterally laced case, the Fifth Circuit reversed and enforced the removal. I would say they have no argument about whether or not this was done in conjunction with the president because they alleged a RICO conspiracy. They've taken care of that standard for us. They say it was criminal. We say it was innocent, but we agree it was all part of an agreement. That accomplishes the removal, Fanny. You know, in addition to learning about how the indictments are filed, you might read some law. See, that's what lawyers do. They like read cases. You see here, this is the case about presidential immunity, Nixon versus Fitzgerald. Here, because I had to catch up really quickly, I'll eventually read all the cases. I got a law review article that explains how you remove cases, and it makes it quite clear that the discretion should be exercised in favor of doing the removal. Very, very. This would be very good for you to read, so that when you come across a case like this in the future, you don't make the same mistake. This is how we learn, Fanny. We read and we learn from our mistakes. You made a very, very big mistake. You indicted an innocent man, innocent men and women. That isn't a mistake. That's a sin. It's a sin. I don't know if we'll ever be able to prove it. And if we did, I don't think the woke people who run our profession will do anything about it for obvious reasons. But you deserve to get kicked out for doing that. This is the nightmare of a decent prosecutor, that you indict an innocent person. And you never do what you did, which is just throw everything up on the wall. And how stupid. I'm sure you didn't read audio lace at all, because that would have told you, what the hell am I doing it for? It's going to get removed to federal court right away. Oh, I understand it, Fanny. It's a long opinion. Yeah. And by the way, are you going to try this case, Fanny? Do you go to court? I mean, do you do things like get up in court and argue? Or are you one of those make-believe DAs? You know, you sit there and you sign papers, and, you know, we got generals like that too. They have, you know, they just sign, they have a whole career where they have the best signature, so they got promoted. I don't know, did you try cases? I'm just asking because you seem to make basic mistakes. And usually people who tried cases don't make those mistakes. This is Meadows' removal petition right here. He's already filed it. It looks very solid to me. Basically, the thrust of it is he was acting as the chief of staff to the president of the United States. Everything that he did was federal in nature. I was acting as the attorney for the president of the United States. I was acting under color of his authority. And everything was federal. It even involved, and she did make another mistake. I don't think it would have helped her that much, but she could have gotten an argument out of it. She decided to bring in things from other states, and that helps the argument for removal. Thank you, Fanny. Boy, I don't know what's happening to my profession. It's very sad. I guess what's happening to America. But in your effort to indict an innocent man, you made an absolute buffoon out of yourself the other night. You look like a buffoon. You know that. Your indictment gets filed at 12. You're up there at 10 with the same damn thing, telling people that it wasn't the same, and it is the same. And then you tell them you don't know how it got filed. If you're the DA and you don't know how things get filed, could be all kinds of cases filed you don't even know about. I may come there and file a couple of cases. Right? I'll go in, I just put the little number down, give it to Reuters. Reuters sounds like Reuters has got Reuters has had any number of leaks. I know no one's going to investigate who committed this crime, just like you didn't investigate Stacey Abrams for claiming forever and ever that she won the election and the election was illegitimate. You're not going to go try to find out who your crooked DA, assistant DA is that handed this indictment off. Somebody had to. The clerk didn't happen like this. Oh, look, I got the indictment. They already got a number. Look at, oh my goodness. It's been, look at all these counts against Trump. Wow. Look at all these counts for Trump talking. Yeah, Trump is getting indicted for talking, for complaining about an election. Even the clerk, I think, said, didn't Hillary do that?
I was just going to say that. Why didn't they indict Hillary for saying it was Russian interference?
See?
Blah.
You got to look at patterns. Russian collusion, the liars, them. Who's telling the truth? Giuliani and Trump. Biden's Ukraine bribe. The liars, Biden, media, networks. Who's telling the truth? Eventually. We go through this period like we're going through with the stolen election now, where we're castigated, yelled at, screamed at, called all kinds of names, told people shouldn't do business with us. Lawyers are afraid to represent us. We go through this, but then we come out telling the truth. Again, I mean, these aren't even debatable. It's not debatable that they lied about this and they lied about that. And these lies really are crimes that they get away with because we don't have a justice system in America. And then Hunter Biden's laptop, I mean, my God, that was the biggest cover up in American history. 16 months later, it comes out that they are complete, absolute liars. And we were completely telling the truth while we were getting our head kicked in.
And even the media agrees.
Oh yeah, but they never, I mean, it's like, it's on page 45.
Yeah.
And then they go ahead and continue to print all kinds of false things about me. And now I'm a liar about the election. But you know something? You don't tell the truth about this, tell the truth about that, tell the truth about that, and lie about this. And you don't lie about this, lie about that, lie about this, and tell the truth about it. You just don't do it. This is a case of good guys and bad guys. The people where you see the name, where you see the word liars, those are the bad guys. We got to straighten this out because the brainwashing of the communists in this country have changed all the meaning of things. Liars means bad guys. And telling the truth means good guys. Bad guy, I'll give you an example. Bad guys are guys like if they're president and one of their states seems to be burning down and hundreds of people are dying and thousands of people are being injured and they are suffering mightily. He stays on the beach, makes no statements about it. And then when asked about it, seems very annoyed that they would interrupt his beach time and says no comment. Astounding that he'd be that insensitive. Or is it? This is the same guy whose wife put out 6 stockings, forgetting that there's a 7th granddaughter. Or did the stepmother remember?
Sure is different than how you handled crises throughout your long and storied career, Mayor.
It's also very different than we have a group here. We don't have the time to play it, but I have how Reagan responded, how Bush responded, how Obama responded, how Trump responded. No one ever came close to doing anything like this. And the media is so corrupt that they don't even mention it. And look what they did to Bush over Katrina. Look what they did to Bush and Bush tried. Maybe the mistakes were made, but he tried. It wasn't as if, first of all, he went there. It wasn't as if he didn't pay any attention. I mean, I don't think he was getting briefings on Hawaii at the beach. He was sitting there. He was sitting there like a mummy. He wasn't even doing sandcastles.
Yeah, what did he say? No comment. I think it was no, and then no comment. Basically, there's nothing to say on the fact that hundreds of people are dead and hundreds more missing in a U.S. state. Does Biden even know Hawaii is a U.S. state?
The question is, does he remember? Does he remember? But how do people still? I mean, why isn't his approval rating like 0?
Yeah. Well,
we know the answer to that.
Mayor, while your show's going on, I didn't want to tell you.
You think they're lying with the polls?
Yeah, they're 100% lying. When you were going on, I didn't want to tell you about Biden. He just told the 9/11 families, and I know this is to you, this is very close, that the masterminds probably will not get the death penalty. Isn't that lovely?
How does he know that?
He told the 9/11 families that they're considering taking the death penalty off the table for the masterminds of 9/11.
Why does he get to decide that?
That's what I just read.
Shouldn't it be decided by a court?
Yeah.
I guess he knows maybe he has a leak like Georgia.
You mean he's going to? The president is going to tell them
He did
that
already.
you can't use the death. The president's going to
He
tell
told
them.
the families of 9/11 survived families.
Did they boo him?
I got to read it, but that's what he just literally told him. It was breaking news like about a half hour ago.
So I am
He's
reading this.
He's a really cruel guy.
The Biden administration.
What about? I mean, we forget about New Palestine.
They're going to.
He's never been there.
That's right. The Pentagon and FBI have notified some of the families of victims of the September 11th attacks that suspected terrorist mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 4 other defendants could be spared the death penalty under plea agreements being considered by the Biden administration. The notice came in the form of a letter obtained by the Associated Press that was sent to 9/11 families as the government explores how to resolve the more than decade-long prosecution of the alleged terrorists. Quote, the Office of the Chief Prosecutor has been negotiating and is considering entering into pretrial agreements, the letter informs families, adding that while no plea agreement has been finalized and may never be finalized, it is possible that a pretrial agreement in this case would remove the possibility of the death penalty. The AP reports that the letter, dated August 1st, military prosecutors pledged to consider the views of the 9/11 families before accepting any plea deals, and the note asks recipients to respond to the FBI's Victim Services Division by Monday with any comments, questions about the potential agreement.
They killed 3,000 people, and you're going to spare them of death penalty?
Maybe he could try the cases.
Idiot. Stupid.
And maybe if he took a couple of the people that he uses for going after Catholic terrorists, and if he took a couple of the people that he uses for J6, which is the most expensive investigation ever conducted in the history of this country, I would think September 11 is worth more than January 6th.
Not according to liberals. They say January 6th was worse than September 11th. What a joke. Yeah.
Oh, Pearl Harbor too.
Oh, right. Pearl Harbor.
Was not
Civil War as well too.
Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah.
World War II.
But it was because it really was hard to have an insurrection. I mean, these guys were really ingenious. They did an insurrection without weapons.
Right.
Right. And they took over. They really were very successful. They took over they're running the government now, aren't they?
But since when does the United States negotiate with terrorists? These are terrorists. These are known terrorists who.
This is the same Justice Department
that's trying to prosecute you.
That prosecuting me.
This is insane, Mayor. This is crazy.
The same Justice Department prosecuting me, who led the effort on September 11. They don't even bother consulting with me as to how I feel about it.
No.
And you know how I feel about it? When George Bush came to New York for the first time, George Pataki and I went out to an Air Force facility in New Jersey, secret one, to greet him and then to helicopter into the city. And when we greeted him, he came off the plane. He talked to George first. Then he came over to me. There's a picture of this because he put his hand behind my head, holding my head. And he said, how are you doing? How you holding up? I said, I'm holding up fine, Mr. President. This is when I'm at my best. And he said, I know that. I know that. And he said, what can I do for you? I said, if you catch this guy, I want to execute him. He looked at me like I was crazy. I said, no, I want to execute him. Now, what I meant by that, I'm not sure I know what I meant. I may have wanted to pull the thing, or I may wanted to prosecute the case. I think I meant prosecuting the case because I always think I'm the best, and And
I can back that up, Mayor. I don't know. I
never
know a
lost a
prosecutor that had.
prosecution.
Look, I don't know the 1800s as well as maybe I could, but can name a prosecutor that's as effective as you in this country's history.
I figured if I did Nazis, why can't I do this guy too?
Well, thank God we killed Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, I was happy. I was happy we
all
killed him.
celebrated.
Biden was against that.
Of course he was, because he wants to give terrorists plea deals. They wouldn't give you a plea deal, but they'll give terrorists plea deals.
Is this really Biden's decision?
It's
We're letting a
Well-
dement. We're letting a dement. This is the reason why I disrespect everybody in Washington.
it's the office of the chief.
I'll tell you why. Everybody in Washington should be going crazy that we have a demented man as president, Republican and Democrat. Republicans should mention it every day. And
Why are
they-
these guys still? How are these guys still alive? Or how? I don't understand. I mean,
Well,
this is
they-
22 years later.
The masterminds.
they
in
were
jail.
all down in
Guantanamo,
Guantanamo
yeah,
with
Guantanamo.
better exercise equipment than the Attorney General.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is still alive.
Yeah.
This guy, I remember hearing his name following September 11th. I thought this was taken care of a dozen years ago.
Well, who would take care of it?
I mean, execution.
Oh, I thought you meant like in a prison where.
Well, if this was another country, these
I mean,
guys
there was
would-
Yeah,
another
I
way
know.
to handle it. Put him in a prison.
Yeah.
I didn't say that.
The United States gives plea deals to terrorists now. This is nice. This is a great world we live in. It really is.
It's all because we're too lazy to try the case.
Insane.
Well, I mean, Epstein, he suicided himself somehow. He was suicided, right? Epstein was. Look, we live in a country where Epstein can be suicided, but no one bothers to suicide Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, huh?
It's quite funny how all people
Interesting how
that
that
are
works.
friends with Hillary Clinton suicide themselves.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, on that
The mayor likes that.
why can't he get suicided? Well, we suicide the guy. We got to get all this information
We're
from
done.
him.
That's it. We're done for the night. That's it.
Oh my goodness!
And we're all happy here. We don't want to kill ourselves. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just make
So
let's
make a couple of let's make a couple of election things here because it'll make my friend Ted happy when I announce it. I know I can see him smiling already. DeSantis is now number 3 officially on both the New Hampshire poll and the composite national poll. Christie has slipped into number 2 place on, but don't say wow, since I think it's 49-9. and Christie is down to, DeSantis is down to 8. That's really the big news. That's a hell of a slip down to single digits. And that's very dangerous. I think I told you a couple of weeks ago that he had a couple of weeks to start gathering momentum and that it would really become dangerous if he got into single digits. Single digits is where campaigns end. If they have been in double digits before. Now, if you're in single digits and growing, that's different. So Ramaswamy is second in the national poll. So it's Trump, Ramaswamy, DeSantis. In the national poll, it's Trump, Christie, and DeSantis in the New Hampshire poll. And this is very bad news for DeSantis because this is after how long has he been He's rebooted about 3 weeks now, right?
Yeah, we're on like day 28 of the reboot.
So obviously the reboot has lost him about 8 points.
Maybe he needs to reboot.
And Trump hasn't gotten his boost from getting indicted again.
Every time he gets indicted, he gets more popular.
He hasn't gotten his indictment boost.
How long will that take before we see that?
Couple of
when,
days.
when we see his
Couple more days.
mugshot, then he'll
Couple of days.
He'll just choom. Yeah.
We, Mayor, we've talked about this a lot. All these anti-Trump people that went with DeSantis, I really they should have gone with Christie. I mean, there's no path for Christie either, but I just it's quite something.
Why should they have gone with Christie?
Because
Christie's not running on anything.
he's running again, but at least he gives these guys, he's open about what he's doing,
What
right?
you like is he makes better noise than DeSantis.
He's a better politician. He's a better, which I don't like. I'm not saying this is my candidate, but from a take out emotion, take out our love for President Trump. And I'm just thinking,
Who do you think was a better governor, Christie or DeSantis?
DeSantis definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the only thing Chris Christie runs is Dunkin' Donuts. Come on,
Absolutely.
let's be honest.
He
has no
he
problem.
left with an approval
Yeah.
rating in the toilet.
yeah,
He just looks like a typical politician on camera, I guess. I guess that's about
Well, typical New Jersey politician.
the, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much.
Like,
gabagool.
In the day of William Howard Taft, who was 380 pounds.
Right. Like like boss tweet over there.
But and of course, Mayor, we had Vivek. We were talking about Vivek. You had that pretty early, right? We were talking about him back in March and April. We had him on the radio show.
No, we saw him as a possible number two.
Yeah. And we saw that months ago, and now everyone else is starting to come
But the big news is DeSantis sinking into
oblivion,
single digits.
Yeah.
That's very, very dangerous. And if his money has been drying up anyway, this will now. If one of these two guys, Ramaswamy, or if this indicates for Ramaswamy or for Chris,
the big guy,
that there's more to come, then it's important. But we don't know that. I mean, this may end at 9. But if now the next poll they're at 15, now you got a different. Now you got a different alternative to Trump. DeSantis will disappear completely.
Yeah, can this sort of polling news kind of exponentially speed up the process? So now people see DeSantis down to 9. So some of those folks that are with him will now see, oh, he's only at 9, and then they'll jump ship too. So it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. As the polling falls, more people start picking new candidates. Again, I think the anti-Trump lane, I really feel Christie's going to get that. DeSantis, well, I don't know what DeSantis was trying to do.
Done.
DeSantis didn't really have a strat. I mean, if you're going to run in 24, right, you're running against Trump. You're running against Trump. You're trying to take it away from Trump.
Well, he's been anti-Trump.
Yeah, but in a sneaky, where Christie's just out in the open. I'm taking on Trump. And DeSantis is trying to be sneaky about it, saying how, Trump supporters, you should vote for me. I'm Trump without the drama. Well, it turns out he's Trump without the charisma, without the humor, without the,
You know what we really need? We need Trump with the cojones. That's what we need right now. This country needs a leader. It needs somebody that doesn't say no comment when people are dying. It's somebody who can look Putin in the eye and scare the shit out of him.
Leadership.
Yeah, who can say to Putin, "Geez, I'd hate to have to bomb Moscow." I'd really feel bad, Vladimir. I would. It would really piss me. Go.
Well, he sent a picture of his house.
Excuse me while I go bomb Syria.
That was the Taliban.
Yeah, I know.
He did that to
He
Z.
did that right in front of the president.
He did that to President Z. He got up from a dinner, went and bombed Syria, and came back. And then Z finds out, did you go bomb? Yes.
Between
what do you think?
main entree and dessert.
That is worth 50 million Blinken bowings.
This Blinken guy, I don't even know where he came from.
Well, Blinken is the one who set up the phony prostitutes, the intelligence prostitutes.
That's right.
to do the phony letter. And
That was his reward, and he got Secretary of.
And he's also
State
involved in any number of FISA violations with Hunter. That, God forbid, they should consider FISA against Hunter. I mean, they put other people in jail for it, but Hunter's got about 80 of them. They also have 170 suspicious action reports in the Treasury Department, which generally indicate a very high level of suspicion that it's money laundering. That's a lot of money laundering by one family. I mean, if the money is straight, why don't you take it straight? Well, they're giving me signs now that we are going to let you all spend some time taking this all in, because we're going to be back tomorrow and we're going to see how the removal goes. We're going to see how all of this sets in, and we're going to probably have a lot to say about how he has treated those poor people, September 11 people, who suffer every day. Probably going to go tell them that he understands their suffering because his son died on the battlefield. Like he told the people, like he told the 13 people, and then he started looking at his watch. If he wasn't the president, somebody would probably punch him in the nose. Don't you think?
Yeah. That guy in the audience, when he was challenging him to a push-up contest, protest was about ready to punch him, I think.
Didn't he say something? Shouldn't he?
They wanted to go outside one time.
Shouldn't he be? He won something about Trump and he was going to take him out back or under the bleachers or
I
something
would love
weird.
to see that.
Remember that? And
He's got to find the bleachers first.
remember that?
We got to find Corn Pop.
No, we got Corn Pop. Now that's
Corn Pop. He's hiding. He's afraid of Joe Biden, obviously.
You think he's afraid of Joe Biden?
well, he was a
Of
bad
course he is.
dude.
He was Corn Pop was a bad dude, but Joe
He ran
Biden
with a
took care of
bunch
him.
of bad boys.
Took
But
care of him.
Joe
Took him
never,
behind the barn.
but
right.
Joe never said what he did to him, though.
Maybe he's, he hurt him really bad. He doesn't want to incriminate himself. Maybe.
He
I'm
beat the
thinking
malarkey out
it
of
was
him.
behind the barn.
Behind the barn.
He took him behind the barn.
Oh, well, man, don't.
That was the same. That's the same when he told the story about how he likes the children touching the hair on his legs.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that was that same spoof.
Look at the time.
You know they would indict President Trump if he said
Is
this.
there a diagnosis for somebody who likes children playing with the hair on their legs?
How weird is that?
Can we get, if there is any doctor out there that or a psychologist or a psychiatrist who can help me with this, I would like to know. And tomorrow night you can call in. We'll give you a special access. If you can give us some kind of a scientific, I don't want like climate change bullshit or that kind of stuff. I want like science, or the vaccine is better than natural immunity. I figured that out just from my own logic, and then Dr. Maria told me for sure. I mean, you got to be like stupid to think that a vaccine is better than natural immunity, because a vaccine never really hits the disease exactly. It goes around the disease. When you have it, you actually have the disease. Well, never mind. But in any event, well, I think we're getting there. I really do. I really think slowly, very painstakingly, we're getting through to the American people. And that's our objective. That's what we're here for, to get you the information you don't get that's covered up by the liars. They went back to their cages. We put them in cages at night, the Hillary sign, and because, they deserve to be in cages. And I really do want you to think, if Trump and I are telling you the truth about everything that so far has been revealed, we're telling you the truth about the rest of it. What the hell am I going to lie for? I mean, I'm going to lie. I put so many criminals in jail. I'm going to lie and commit a crime. Look, I know Rico. Rico was a friend of mine. This is no Rico case. God bless America. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense.